Robert Mitchum really hated him more than anyone else. Robert Mitchum was born Robert Charles Durr Mitchum on August 6, 1917 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. From the time he was little, Mitchum's life was full of hard times and moving around. His father worked on the railroad and sadly died in an accident when Robert was only 2 years old. This left his mother alone to take care of 3 kids during the hard years of the Great Depression. When he was a teenager, Mitchum didn't follow the rules and loved adventure. He traveled all over the United States by jumping on trains, doing all kinds of jobs like digging ditches, boxing, and even working on a chain gang in Georgia after getting arrested for being homeless. Those tough times made him strong and real, which later helped make him one of the most believable tough guys in movie history. Before he became an actor, Mitchum worked writing for a star reader named Carol Ryder and even wrote poetry. This shows that under his tough look, he was a deep thinker who saw the world in a special way. He got into Hollywood almost by accident. He started doing tiny parts in cowboy movies and other films in the early 1940s, taking small jobs to help his young family. But pretty soon, his natural charm and amazing screen presence got noticed by the people who chose actors. By 1945, he got his first big chance with a movie called The Story of G.I. Joe, getting nominated for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor and showing everyone he was really talented. Through the late 1940s and 1950s, Mitchum became super famous for detective mystery movies, doing amazing performances in classics like Out of the Past in 1947, Crossfire in 1947, and The Big Steal in 1949. His deep voice, half-closed eyes, and slow way of moving made him a master at not overdoing it. He didn't need to yell to get people's attention. Even his silence said a lot. He was the perfect detective movie hero, calm under pressure, tired of the world, and complicated in his choices. Unlike many other actors back then who wanted to play perfect heroes, Mitchum liked playing characters with problems, men stuck between good and bad, showing a kind of emotional realness that people loved. But his career wasn't just detective movies. Mitchum showed he could do lots of different types of movies: war films, cowboy movies, love stories, and scary thrillers. In The Night of the Hunter in 1955, he gave one of the scariest performances ever as Reverend Harry Powell, a fake preacher and murderer. His creepy acting with the words love and hate tattooed on his fingers is still one of the most famous in movie history. The role showed Mitchum's ability to be scary and charming at the same time, a rare talent that very few actors had. He followed this with powerful performances in Heaven Knows Mr. Allison in 1957, The Sundowners in 1960, and Cape Fear in 1962, where he again scared audiences as the angry Max Cady, proving his skill in both good guy and bad guy roles. When he wasn't filming, Mitchum was known for not following rules and not liking Hollywood's strict system. He once said, "People think I have an interesting walk. Hell, I'm just trying to hold my belly in." That kind of making fun of himself humor was just how he was. He didn't take being famous too seriously and didn't have patience for fake people. Even though he got arrested for having marijuana in 1948, which was a big scandal back then, Mitchum's career stayed mostly fine. If anything, getting arrested made his reputation as Hollywood's rebel even stronger, a man who lived his own way and didn't care what other people thought. He was a new kind of famous person, one based on being real instead of being perfect. In the later years of his career, Mitchum moved smoothly into older and more complicated roles, working with younger stars and new groups of filmmakers. He gave memorable performances in movies like Ryan's Daughter in 1970, Farewell, My Lovely in 1975, and The Friends of Eddie Coyle in 1973. The last one was widely praised for being realistic and subtle. Even as he got older, Mitchum kept the quiet power that made him magnetic on screen. On TV, he continued to grab audiences' attention with roles in popular miniseries like The Winds of War in 1983 and War and Remembrance in 1988, earning respect for his hard work and lasting talent. In the fall of 1933, a 16-year-old Robert Mitchum met the girl who would one day become the steady part of his wild but amazing life, 14-year-old Dorothy Spence. They met in the kind of place that could have come straight from one of the sweet small-town scenes he would later play in movies. a peaceful swimming hole near Camden, Delaware. Dorothy, a fun and smart young girl, was a classmate of Robert's younger brother, John Mitchum, and had even dated him for a little while before things changed. Robert was immediately attracted to her. Under his tough, rebellious look, there was something about Dorothy's quiet grace, kindness, and down-to-earth charm that completely won him over. Their friendship quickly grew into a romance that had a deep emotional connection way beyond the puppy love typical for kids their age. Even though they were young and living during the uncertain Depression years, the two started a serious relationship that would survive distance, hard times, and the crazy ride of Hollywood fame. When Robert left for California in 1934 to try his luck and find a better life, Dorothy stayed behind in Delaware where she kept going to school. She later went to college in Philadelphia, staying independent while Robert struggled through different jobs and times of being poor on the West Coast. Even though they were separated by many miles, their letter writing kept their connection alive. Robert's letters, full of humor and exciting stories, showed the restless dreamer she had fallen in love with. Dorothy's loyalty never changed, even when his path led him to hobo camps, chain gangs, and eventually the unpredictable world of Hollywood. In a time when long-distance relationships often disappeared into memory, theirs got deeper, proof of how strong and real young love can be. After years of living through uncertainty and being apart, Robert and Dorothy decided to make their relationship official. On March 16, 1940, the couple got married in a simple ceremony in Dover, Delaware. True to their humble beginnings, the ceremony happened not in a big church or courthouse, but in the simple kitchen of a Methodist minister. There was no glamour, no reporters, and no big fuss, only two people promising to share a life built on love and never giving up. Soon after, Robert brought his wife across the country to Los Angeles, hoping to give her the stability that he'd never had for a long time. He started working at the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation, a respectable job that gave them a feeling of security during those early years of marriage. But Mitchum's restless nature and creative spirit couldn't be held back for long. By June 1942, fate led him toward Hollywood, where he found work as an actor. The decision would change both of their lives forever. As Robert's career in movies took off, his partnership with Dorothy became the foundation that kept him steady through the craziness of Hollywood stardom. Together they raised 3 children who each carried a part of their father's legacy. Their oldest, James Mitchum, born on May 8, 1941, would go on to follow in his father's footsteps as an actor, appearing in many films and earning recognition for looking strikingly like Robert. Their second son, Christopher Mitchum, born on October 16, 1943, also became an actor, making a successful career in movies both in America and other countries. Known for his appearances in action and adventure films. Nearly 10 years later, on March 3, 1952, their daughter Patrine was born. She chose a different path, becoming a respected writer who would later write books about the film industry and her father's amazing life. Among the many actors who crossed paths with the legendary Robert Mitchum, none seemed to make him angry or annoyed quite like George Peppard. Known for his cool, easy charm both on screen and off, Mitchum was rarely a man who lost his cool or got involved in silly Hollywood fights. He had a reputation for being detached, not impressed by fame, and generally okay with his co-workers, even those who bothered him. But when it came to George Peppard, the star of Breakfast at Tiffany's and later the A-Team, Mitchum's patience and professional politeness reached their limits. In one of his rare honest moments, Mitchum is reported to have said, "That son of a Peppard was one of the few people in this business I couldn't stand to be around." He thought he was God's gift to the movies, but he didn't have the soul for it. Their mutual dislike wasn't born from one single incident, but grew from a pile-up of insults, egos, and clashing personalities. Mitchum, a man who valued being real above all else, saw Peppard as a fake movie star, someone who tried too hard to seem tough and classy. Mitchum's own image was the opposite, raw, unfiltered, and easily commanding. He didn't need to prove anything to anyone. Peppard, on the other hand, seemed to live in a constant performance, even when the cameras stopped rolling. He was the kind of actor who'd check his reflection between takes, Mitchum once joked, and then tell you how brilliant he thought his last scene was. I've worked with divas before, but Peppard made them look humble. The tension between them reportedly started when they were both considered for similar roles in the late 1950s and early 1960s. Rugged leading men who could carry a movie with masculine charm. Studios often compared Mitchum's experienced gravitas against Peppard's polished intensity. And while Mitchum had long secured his place among Hollywood's elite, he saw Peppard as a shallow copycat trying to inherit that same position. What made Mitchum most angry was Peppard's attitude toward veterans of the business. He had little respect for the older generation, often dismissing them as dinosaurs. Mitchum, who had fought his way up from poverty and years of hard labor before achieving fame, took such arrogance personally. Peppard had this air like he'd invented acting, Mitchum remarked. But the truth is, he didn't even understand it. Mitchum's dislike only got deeper when he watched Peppard's behavior toward others on set. Crew members who worked with both men remembered how Mitchum treated everyone from grips to makeup artists with the same laid-back respect. Peppard, however, was notorious for putting down those he considered beneath him. That kind of superiority was an unforgivable sin in Mitchum's eyes. "You can tell a lot about a man by how he treats the guy holding the boom mic," he said. Peppard treated them like furniture. That told me everything I needed to know. For Mitchum, being decent mattered more than fame or money. Hollywood was full of difficult personalities, but Peppard's mixture of vanity, insecurity, and cruelty stood out as especially toxic. Even their approaches to acting were completely different. Mitchum's method was minimalism. He believed that less was more, that truth came from holding back. Peppard was theatrical, likely to overanalyze every line and demand endless retakes to perfect his performance. Mitchum found that exhausting. He'd talk about motivation until you wanted to throw him through a wall, Mitchum joked. Sometimes I think he thought he was still at acting school. Their philosophical divide mirrored their personalities. Mitchum was all instinct, a man who trusted his gut. Peppard was all intellect, constantly trying to outthink the scene. Their paths crossed again in Hollywood circles during the 1970s, when Peppard was struggling because of his drinking and difficult attitude. Mitchum, never one to enjoy another man's downfall, still found a grim satisfaction in seeing karma at work. "He burned a lot of bridges," Mitchum said bluntly. "He had talent, sure, but he poisoned his own well. You can't treat people like dirt and expect them to catch you when you fall." Peppard's later years, marked by career decline and personal regret, stood in sharp contrast to Mitchum's steady, lasting legacy as one of Hollywood's true originals. To Mitchum, being real was everything. He admired men who lived by their word, gritty, flawed, but real. In his eyes, George Peppard represented the opposite, an actor who mistook arrogance for confidence and who spent his life chasing the approval of a town that eventually turned its back on him. Their rivalry never ended in a shouting match or public confrontation. Mitchum wasn't that kind of man. Instead, it lived on quietly in his memories, coming up only when someone asked about Peppard's name. Then, with that trademark half-smile and sarcastic glint in his eye, Mitchum would mutter, "Yeah, I knew him. Once was enough." In a career spanning more than half a century, Robert Mitchum had worked with the best and the worst of Hollywood. But by his own admission, George Peppard was the one man who got under his skin more than anyone else. And when Mitchum said he hated someone, he meant it. Not with petty meanness, but with the tiredness of a man who'd seen too much fakeness to stomach one more ounce of it. In that sense, his dislike for Peppard wasn't just personal. It was philosophical. It was the eternal clash between the real and the artificial, between a man who was the movies and one who merely performed them. A lifelong heavy smoker, Mitchum died in his sleep at 5 a.m. on July 1, 1997, at his home in Santa Barbara, California, from complications of lung cancer and emphysema. His wife of 57 years, Dorothy, was by his side.